Let's talk about how to get the most out of your small group times. But before we get to the what and how, let's quickly examine the why. As kids ministers, we all want to see kids grow in their faith and relationship with God, loving Him with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength, and loving other people too. And we want kids to learn what the Bible teaches and the stories of our faith. But the question is, how can we best do that? From a platform up front or from relationships beside? I used to be on the side of platform up front because that's where I'm naturally gifted and that's how I was raised, sort of. You see, we've moved from an era where churches had an education hour, Sunday school, followed by a large group service, to seeing Sunday school go away in many established churches and never even exist in many new ones. And all we've been left with is the large group. So let's compare some words that describe each environment. Up front, small groups. Up front, fun, unique, entertaining, big, exciting. You get a specialist in presenting and actors, but impersonal, naturally. But we try to make it personal and even a little distant. With small groups, some of those words are the same. Fun, unique, exciting, but small, engaging, regular folks can come in and lead that, and personal, naturally, there's no effort needed, and close. When I was a kid, my dad was my kids' pastor, and he used to say there were two reasons we go to church. One, to meet with others. Two, to meet with God. And I've seen many churches where the last one is great, but the first one is lacking. I've seen it in my own church. Kids want to connect with each other, and we just keep telling them to be quiet and listen up. Ironic, isn't it? In small groups, we get to do both. My pastor says, and maybe yours has, or maybe you've heard this before, people grow best in circles, not in rows. And you're not going to make disciples from the platform. I most recently saw this in action. As I said, I'm more naturally gifted up front in large group. But not too long ago, I was leading a small group of second grade girls. And I asked them the question, do you know what sin is? And the girls looked at me with this quizzical look on their face and said, no. And one girl piped up, it's when you're lying. And I thought, yeah, that's great. That's an example of a sin. But what makes lying a sin? And the girls looked at me quizzically again and said, I don't know. And I was able to have a conversation with them about what sin is, how sin is defined as us disobeying God. That conversation could not have happened in the large group setting the way it happened in that small group. And I know those girls went home that day knowing what sin is. So here are some keys to successful small group time. One question a lot of people ask is, should I make small groups based on age or based on gender? And I would say go with age-based first and gender-based as volunteers allow it. The way kids learn, interact, and process information changes drastically as they age. Fifth graders need different application of the lesson than first graders. Another question, how do you assign leaders? I would say this, put your best leader with the oldest kids. They're the kids that are going to have questions and ideas that need your best. And as your ministry grows, encourage your leaders to grow with the kids. Don't lock them into being a kindergarten small group leader forever. Relationships trump positions. And some people are going to ask, what do you do during small group time? You know, everyone has a different formula for their group times. At the church I'm at now, we have 2 small group times during each service, one at the beginning and one at the end of the service. In the opening group time, the group leader welcomes the kids, they greet each other, they welcome the new kids, and then they have a connection time where the group leader asks a couple simple questions the kids can relate to and get to know each other better through, and that indirectly relate to the day's lesson. Then they do an activity, a quick, fun, and interactive activity to introduce the day's theme. And then the small group leader introduces the big idea for the day, one short, simple statement that the lesson's all about, and they cover the expectation, the rules for the room. After that, they close the small group, they head to large group, and after worship and a 15 to 20 minute large group teaching, they return to their small groups where they review and they discuss what they just heard. They open up their Bibles, they talk about the application of the lesson, they have a prayer time together, and then they do a closing activity, something the kids can do alone or in pairs while parents are picking children up. Now, what if your curriculum doesn't have a small group component? Two things. Look online. You can find simple lessons to complement your Bible lesson. You'll find activity sheets, Bible scavenger hunts, and who knows, maybe even a recipe for flubber. You can also find Bible verses that reflect the lesson and have the kids do a sword drill, looking up the verses as fast as they can. Two great things you can do if your small group curriculum isn't included with your other. Now, how should you communicate with your small group leaders? Often. That's right. And early. Get them their guides at least 1 week in advance, if not sooner. They need time to think about the conversations that they're going to have with the children at church when they show up next. They need to be ready, so get them ready. The most effective way to reinforce the lesson and see if kids are getting it is to help them process it in a small group. Let's do all we can to help kids grow in faith and knowledge of God.